What is it about racing that captivates our imagination? Is it the adrenaline? Is it the unpredictability? Is it the beauty of the cars? We watch these exotic vehicles drive around at unimaginable speeds at such precision it seems surreal. It makes us wonder what else is possible. There's just one problem. Not everyone can own a race car or feel the rush of letting loose on a racetrack. So how do you get to experience the thrill of racing? After all, street racing is illegal. It's dangerous. And that's exactly why it excites us. In 2005, the interest in street racing was at its peak. If you were around back then, you probably know why. Fast and the Furious had just hit the big screens and convinced every teenager to be like Dominic Toretto. You needed to know your cars, know how to keep it cool, and to race 1/4 mile at a time. You just needed to avoid the cops. That movie spawned one of the most popular franchises in modern history, but it wasn't because of its acting or its storyline. We watched because of the dream it sold us, the dream of family, of speed, and modified everyday cars. Suddenly, it dawned on us, you don't need to drive a race car. You don't need to own a Ferrari or a Lamborghini to feel the rush of adrenaline. You could modify everyday Hondas or Mitsubishis. Anybody could do this. You could do this. You also realize something else you need. The need for speed. Sure, there have been plenty of classic racing games before, and if you've ever explored the racing genre, chances are you've experienced at least one game from the Need for Speed franchise. But out of the dozens of Need for Speed titles, there is one clear winner when it comes to blurring the lines between racing exotic cars, street racing, and high-speed police chases. It blurred the lines between reality and fiction. This wasn't just about who had the fastest car anymore. Lap times and podium finishes were for Gran Turismo, for sim racers. This was the ultimate arcade racing game. We raced for pink slips. We raced for street cred. We raced to outrun the cops, or run into the cops. This game was Need for Speed Most Wanted. Welcome to Bucket List Gaming, the channel where we go through and talk about the must-play titles that make your gaming bucket list. In this video, we're going to revisit Need for Speed Most Wanted, the Need for Speed franchise, and all the fun facts that make this game regarded as one of the greatest of all time. Published way back in December 1994 on Windows to a very warm reception, the original Need for Speed won runner-up for Action Game of the Year in 1995 and placed in the top 100 greatest games of all time in 1996. The famous combination of car racing mixed with police chases was present from the very first edition of this Need for Speed game. I remember playing this on a computer with a joystick back in the day at my dad's office. It was a lot of fun and so very addictive. There were showcases for each car and video sequences that reminded you that although a video game, this was based on actual tracks and vehicles from real life. And let's talk about the cars for a second. In the first 6 official Need for Speed games, cars were either sports or luxury vehicles. You know, the ones you would probably never be able to own or even afford. Porsches, Ferraris, Lamborghinis. In fact, it wasn't until Need for Speed Underground in 2003 that the franchise shifted exclusively to popular tuner cars. What are tuner cars? Well, they're basically Japanese cars which were the go-to cars to modify in the 1990s and early 2000s. Mitsubishis, Subarus, Toyotas and Nissans, vehicles that the younger target gaming audience could realistically own. For years, all I dreamed about was earning the money to buy a bigger exhaust, a turbo kit, an intercooler, or a racing body. All of the unnecessary but coolest additions that I could make to modify my first Honda. Need for Speed really capitalized on this along with the movies like Fast and the Furious. But little did we know Need for Speed was still only in first gear, because after the hugely popular Underground 2 came Most Wanted. Not only did the game contain realistically attainable cars you could see people modify in real life, but back came the luxury and incredible sports cars, giving you the best of both worlds. You could work your way up, tune up your starter Volkswagen to compete, add a turbo kit, suspension, or a new gearbox, or just buy a Lamborghini Gallardo and enjoy its natural power. The progression system through races for cash and unlockable parts gave you a path that, in your imagination, could seemingly be something you could do in real life. Why not, right? Well, first off, just like in real life, there are cops to keep you in check, but more about that a bit later. The progression system in Need for Speed Most Wanted was pretty solid and something you could spend hours trying to perfect. In this game, you begin the story in the fictional city of Rockport, driving an immaculate BMW M3 GTR, and meet a couple of street racers, the police who are hellbent on stopping said street racers, as well as new friends who decide to help you, named Mia and Rog. Through a few quick races, you're praised for your skills, as well as your car, which inevitably sets you up with a race for pink slips against the bad guy in this story, an all-round D-bag, Razor.
He's dangerous. Be careful, he'll swap paint if he has to.
First I'm gonna take your ride, then I'm gonna take your girl. Get ready for that.
You need your pink slip?
If you aren't familiar with the term pink slips, it basically means racing for ownership of the certificate of title to your car. Essentially, the winner of the race keeps the loser's car.
How's your car running?
Unknown to you, Razor and his pals tamper with your car at the starting line, causing you to lose the most amazing vehicle in the game and nearly get arrested by the cops.
Hey, there's something wrong with your ride. You left a huge oil slick at the start line. You have to end the race fast.
No! No! Using your BMW, Razor climbs the ranks of the blacklist as Mia insists you do the same. Enact revenge to reclaim your prized possession and your reputation. The blacklist is a list of 15 of the most notorious street racers in Rockport, and in order to make it up the list to challenge #1 ranked Razor, you must take down each racer individually. But in order to have the opportunity to race against each member in the blacklist, you have to prove your worth by winning a certain number of races, completing bounty tasks and milestones unique to each racer. Each level slowly gave you the skills to progress onto the harder challenges later down the line. The storytelling made career mode so very engrossing. It had me hooked despite some of the cheesy lines from the characters.
She's mine now. And I'm gonna ride her like you never could. Hard and flat.
The story was filled with twists and turns, and if you did complete this game, you should know exactly what I'm talking about with the huge shock at the end. Damn it, Mia. In the progression system, there is a bare minimum number of items to move on, so you don't need to actually complete every single challenge on your screen. But if you have somewhat of a completionist motivation, you can go through and complete every challenge even after you finish the game. As you rise up the ranks, the cars you race against, as well as the difficulty of the tasks you will face, continues to get harder, so it's up to you to pick the path which is best for you. In fact, as you continue to level up the blacklist, you have the ability to unlock further cars, acquire more cash, and purchase better and better modifications. Some mods wouldn't give you that much of a difference at first, but once accumulated, or if you were lucky enough to find some rare junkman parts, your cars became incredible to drive. This gave you a sense of attachment to what you owned from the start, and just like my first Honda, you'd want to stick to it until the very end. In fact, surprisingly, one of the best cars to start with might be the Fiat Punto. The zippy handling and speed added with the extra parts could, with a bit of luck, take you all the way to some of the final stages of the blacklist. When I was nearing completion of career mode, a chatter came into my stream and suggested I try the Golf to beat a race I was stuck on, despite many attempts with cars that I have in my garage like the Gallardo, Viper and the Porsche 911. Race with the Fiat Punto? Is it really? Will the Fiat Punto take over the Lamborghini? Not sure it's going to be better than this Lambo. Could test it out though. Trust me? Alright, I'll try it after this. Why not? We've got to be extra cash. But if it goes wrong, I'm blaming the car and not myself. The problem is always the car and not me. Never the driver. Oh, that's a corner. Okay, apparently some of the people have come through and said we need to try the Fiat Punto. Look at this! There's like no stats to it. Look at that bar on the top right. We have a little bit of acceleration. This is the second worst car in the game, but we'll do it. Top speed, 312 Ks. Does it take like 10 minutes to get up there? Make it black? Alright, bet. This might be lit. Oh, I don't know. It's struggling. Pain. Turn! It doesn't turn! Ugh. That's a struggle. At first, I thought this may have been a cruel trick, but with plenty of cash in my account, I decided to try it, and you wouldn't believe it was actually insane. Turbo? Ooh. This is like all that cash gone. Let's do it. Matte black. The turbo, the blow-off valve. The blow-off valve. All right, we're gonna go into pursuit. It sounds like Weezer from Toy Story. I would be too tall for this car in real life. This thing is tiny. Nah, the Italians know how to make a good car. My people, they're my people. My people know how to make things. Might be expensive. Might take a while to do. And it might be a little bit too fancy in some places, but it is a good car. Whoa, did you see that cop car? He went flying. What the? It's freaking Evil Knievel over here. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! What the? No! Hey, the Fiat! Oh wow! The Fiat was good. The Fiat was good. What a good shout. The Fiat. I know. I gotta trust you guys. I trust you guys with everything now. I'm gonna do that again. Shout out the Fiat. The Fiat was worth it. Yes, we spent almost all our money, but I think it is worth it. Kind of wish I used this from the start if I knew. Due to its weak baseline stats, I never even tried this car back in 2005. It just goes to show that sometimes there are hidden gems with the right upgrades. It also showed me that I am definitely no Dominic Toretto in car knowledge. But my favourite cars in Need for Speed Most Wanted are the Mitsubishi Evo and the Lamborghini Gallardo. The Lancer being a car I owned at one point in time and brought back a lot of memories, with the Lambo being an absolute dream car of mine. Being able to utilise both is one of those things which makes this game incredible to play for me. You can play out your fantasies in a legitimate street car. Although slightly in the realm of fiction, it might be possible to realistically own an absolute beast of a car. But the likelihood is that that will never happen, and even more unlikely is me owning a Lamborghini. Especially one that is maxed out on performance parts. So imagine spending hours going between those two dreams, racing and perfecting your cars just the way you like them. But on the flip side, if you don't care for upgrades, you could potentially go through and complete career mode simply by taking the cars from each blacklist member you beat. Since the races are for pink slips, if you select the right marker, you can own their car to progress. And as you do progress, not only does the level of competition rise, the requirements to progress get even more intense. So does the aggressiveness of the cops trying to take you down. So let's talk about one of the most important aspects of this game, the police. There's no getting around it. In Need for Speed Most Wanted, you will be breaking the law and you need to be good at it. To move up the blacklist, you need to accumulate bounty points, and you get these bounty points by completing illegal actions throughout the game against police or in the car in general. Speeding, damaging property, endangering lives, there is a long list of infractions to attract police attention and increase your bounty. Some challenges might be escaping police after a certain duration of time in pursuit, and this might not always be as straightforward as it seems. Police chases can last for quite a long time, and as they continue to rise in heat level, so does the tension of trying to escape, with the aggressiveness of the police continuing to rise. The longer pursuits go, the more the cops will start trying different things. Aside from more and more backup with faster cars and better drivers, this can include ramming you head on in a heavy vehicle, setting up spike strips, and they will even try and land on you with their support helicopter. After a certain point, driving fast and misdirection comes ineffective, so you must utilize pursuit breakers to immobilize the cops around you to escape. And this is where the game can get frustratingly fun to play. Sometimes a random taxi will cut in front of your perfectly timed corner. Sometimes you'll bump off another car into a spike strip you were clearly about to avoid. You need to get away from the cops and make them give up the pursuit after you've met the requirements of the chase, but sometimes you just can't seem to get away. Some chases can last upwards of 15 minutes of highly stressful situations. Having the police throw everything at me had me on the edge of my seat. There were times where I was only stopped for the narrowest of margins. There were times where I just made a wrong turn into a dead end. And although every failure had me pulling my hair out, it's this experience which builds the personality of the game, and I love the frustration. And although every level of progress had similar elements of what needed to be achieved, the game never felt stale. The mixture of storyline thrown in with the increasing difficulty and unique race types kept each level fresh. And you have to do that for essentially 15 different levels of a game before the final boss. 2 new race types were added to this game which hadn't appeared in other Need for Speed titles. They were called Toll Booth, a solo-style checkpoint race against the clock, and Speed Trap, where accumulated speed at certain points was tallied along with the race time. The fact that some races contained police interference within them or might end in a pursuit you needed to escape from, just made each race feel unique. Not to mention the immense detail of the map and the varying locations of the races. You could find yourself on a boardwalk pier 1 minute and industrial complex the next, before bursting through gas pumps next to a busy major highway. It was that blurred line between reality and fiction that made your dream come true. Racing your favourite car through suburban streets, off ramp and down an alleyway, all whilst avoiding flashing lights of the cops. The beauty of this game is that you have to figure out how to get better at the things that are keeping you from progressing. It's not as simple as getting to a certain point in the story, driving past the checkpoint and moving on to the next cutscene. They were challenging, and they weren't just races to a finish line. You didn't just have to finish ahead of the other cars like you do in games like Forza or Gran Turismo. The added elements of police, dynamic weather and traffic all played a part in things to overcome. You need to actually beat the game to complete it. When it first came out 20 years ago, I completed Need for Speed Most Wanted and remember being annoyed, frustrated and yet so in love with the game. And that didn't change for me when I went back to play it through in full again in 2025. I love the cars. I hated being beaten. I loved the difficulty. I hated being taken out by a sudden head-on collision. And I loved the cheesy one-liners in the cutscenes. In fact, the game was praised for its ingenuity by utilizing actual actors captured on film and put into the game, rather than designing models and rendering 3D characters. The actors were recorded and superimposed in the game and gave Need for Speed Most Wanted such a unique look. IGN gave such praise as saying that this mixture of animated, highly coloured FMV characters and stylized backgrounds is both imaginative and refreshing. Of course, the graphic quality will depend on which platform you played on. The Windows version took advantage of HDR and motion blur to give a more realistic feel over the limited console hardware at the time. For me, it obviously doesn't meet today's standards, but the quality never felt like an issue back in 2005. Filming actors for cutscenes wasn't the only innovation that Need for Speed presented to us that has become part of its legacy. Most Wanted was one of the first games in the Need for Speed series to fully embrace an open world environment, allowing players to explore Rockport City freely without loading screens between districts. You weren't taken out by loading screens mid-drive and thus kept you immersed in the Need for Speed world. The game felt huge and cities felt amazing. In fact, the city maps were based on realistic locations from Los Angeles urban and industrial areas to San Francisco's iconic bridges and Miami's lifestyle vibes. Exploring Rockport in free roam is something you can do to relax in between races or just find a new point of interest that can help you in future pursuits. It's the little things which make a big difference. Remember all the old games that had cheat codes built into them? You hit a combo of buttons or type in a particular username and the keys were found in a cheat code book that would give you access to a host of helpful or randomly funny items. There were codes you could enter in previous Need for Speed games that would flip up the cars around you when you beeped your horn. You could race in a school bus or a taxi that could plow through traffic. Unfortunately, there wasn't too many crazy ones in Need for Speed Most Wanted, but in this game there was one code called the Burger King Challenge, which can unlock all the best parts or performance upgrades for your car. One lesser known code is Go to Work, which unlocks all the cars in the game. However, using the cheats disabled the ability to save progress, making it a one-time fun thing for most players. Need for Speed Most Wanted became famous for its modding community. Players could modify almost every aspect of the game, from adding new cars to altering the game physics, which significantly extended the game's lifespan. Most mods were based around graphic fidelity and bringing it up to today's standards, but you could also change how many and what type of police chased you at each heat level, added music, or adding extra cars like Dominic Toretto's Charger from Fast and Furious 8. The success of this game cannot be understated. The Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences awarded Most Wanted with Racing Game of the Year, along with a nomination for Outstanding Character Performance Female for the role of fan favourite Mia, played by actress Josie Moran. Selling over 18 million copies worldwide and 3.9 million in the United States alone, made Most Wanted the best-selling title in the Need for Speed series. The PlayStation 2 version in particular received a double platinum sales award. The BMW M3 GTR featured in this game has gained a cult following on the internet. When searched online, the majority of the search results for the car are related to the Most Wanted game. For the 30th anniversary of the Need for Speed series and 20th anniversary of Most Wanted, BMW designed a special edition M3 GTR based on the design from the video game as a homage to its iconic status and had it exhibited at the BMW Welt Museum from December 2024 to January 2025. And I have to mention the soundtrack. The music featured in this game was a mix of rap, hip-hop and rock. Lupe Fiasco, Avenged Sevenfold, there were songs on here I instantly had to go download on LimeWire and play in my car's sound system in 2005. The music selection was perfect. It had me feeling pumped, unbeatable, and definitely made me drive recklessly faster. In-game, of course. In fact, revisiting this game in 2025 had me adding some of these songs to my Spotify playlist, leaving a legacy of gaming ingenuity, frustratingly fun gameplay, and immersive story. Need for Speed Most Wanted has to be considered one of the greatest games of all time. I will remember the game for the twists and turns of the story, as well as the races and pursuits themselves. This game brought to life the inner street racer in all of us, and will forever be remembered as an amazing game. Playing it 20 years after completing it for the first time hasn't changed my fondness for Need for Speed Most Wanted, and is absolutely one of the games you should add to your gaming bucket list.